This episode of TWIMMO is brought to you by GameBreaker.tv/deals. Right now, if you're interested in WildStar, you can get 20% off your pre-order. Multiple avenues to get it to. Check out the site, not just for WildStar, but for all kinds of game discounts. Check it out every day. They're constantly changing.
GameBreaker TV.
Internet, and welcome to episode 181 of TWIMMO for March 21st, 2014. I'm Mike Byrne, you're watching GameBreaker TV, and today we're going to chat a little bit about Elder Scrolls Online, but not as much as we have the last 2 weeks, so don't get scared. The eminent landmark beta and ArcheAge is coming? Really? All that and more, but first, joining me, you might know this dude from the Republic, Mr. Larry Everett. How are you, sir?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Thank you for coming on today. He heard there was ESO chat, and he was all over it. Welcome. Glad to have you. And you know him from GameBreaker and GameBreaker Nation and on jillions of articles all over the place. Not to mention doing the whole community management thingy. Mr. Justin Kennedy.
Glad to be here today.
Look at you. I feel bad. I didn't bring a beard to the party.
I know. What's up with that?
Everybody
should at least get a pen right now and draw one on.
I don't think that's going to happen. Although there was an episode of TWIMMO in the past where I did draw Chinhawk because some people were yelling about AKA Mike B. So I tried to help them out, but alas, it didn't work out. So you guys are representing the beards. We're going to talk about some Elder Scrolls Online just a little bit here because there were a few pieces of news that dropped this week. So we'll start off with that. Get it out of the way for those of you that are sick of TWIMMO being Elder Scrolls only for the last couple of weeks. Now, what a lot of you may not know, you're kind of known on GameBreaker as the whole Star Wars guy, and that's what you do here. But for those of the viewers that don't know, you also do quite a bit of ESO coverage over on Massively, don't you?
Yeah, I do. I write the Tamriel Infinium, which is every other week on Tuesday. That covers pretty much anything you need to know about Elder Scrolls Online. So, yep, I do quite a bit of coverage of it.
In a nutshell, what's your take on the game, since you haven't been on TWIMMO to talk the last couple of weeks?
My take of the game, my take of the game has changed quite a bit, and it's specifically these last couple of weeks, it's changed a lot. Mainly, but I would say if it's like, it's not like Tor. This game is nothing like Tor as far as I'm concerned. It plays totally differently. The concept of the game is completely different. It's an exploration kind of game is what I take out of it, and it plays quite a bit. It's functionally like I don't know, like Guild Wars 2. I would say it's a lot like that, and I like it. I'm a big fan of the game. I'm a big fan of the lore, and I can't wait to jump in.
All the Guild Wars 2 players just screamed.
I know, but it's
How
true.
How dare you make that comparison?
Okay, now when you get past the tutorial part of the game, and because that's the thing that was really always bugging me about the game is that, and especially when they were doing the beta weekends and whatnot, that people were jumping in and what they were getting was the tutorial, which is not what the game is like. The game is like it's crazy. It's nothing like the tutorials. Once you get out of that tutorial and onto the mainland and start exploring, you run into all these quest lines that you kind of just do whatever you want to do. As long as you stay within a certain realm, a certain region, you're fine, and you'll be able to, just do whatever. And it's a lot of fun. I love it.
Justin, behind the scenes, you've been playing a ton of it with the beta weekends too, hanging out with GameBreaker Nation and playing it. And again, in a nutshell, keep it short. Your overall thoughts. I've already given mine, so I'll skip this question.
My overall thoughts is that I found a game. I want to listen to the quest. I want to read them. I want to hear them. I want to play it, and I'm ready to jump into some PvP and kick some other guilds' butts down the road.
Well, that was very succinct. Well done, sir. All right, so this week ZeniMax did do an AMA, Ask Me Anything, on the Elder Scrolls subreddit. Props to them. They did start answering the tough questions, which kind of makes you wonder why they spent all that time in their normal Q&As with the softball questions, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I hated those things.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Those weren't AMAs. Those were PR trips. I don't know what those.
They were AMAs that we want you to ask us.
Right.
So
right,
first off,
exactly.
let's go through a couple of them. There's no current plans to support speech bubbles. I know. Poor Larry Everett.
Yeah. Well,
You might have a little bit of experience with this topic on another show you might do here on Game Breaker TV.
Yeah, there are certain.
This is why we had you
add-ons.
on. Actually, we were like, "There's no speech
Just-
bubble."
just to
See if Larry
disappoint
can
me
do the
with
show
this
this
is
week.
No, there are certain add-ons and stuff like that that people have been working on to kind of augment chat bubbles and whatnot. But yeah, as of right now, it is a little bit disappointing that those aren't in there, because this game really lends itself well to role play and people that would generally love to have chat bubbles, but unfortunately, they're just not there this time around.
Are we not past the days of chat bubbles, though? I mean, the whole game's voice.
Oh shit! I'm gonna sit
Look at
back.
it.
So wait a second. So wait a second.
So let's add
Are we
audio into
supposed-
it.
Are we
Role
supposed
players
to
talk.
Are we supposed to role play with our voices now? Is that what you're saying? You're not
Role play
supposed
with
to-
your voices, give an accent to
yeah.
it, give your character a voice.
Have you heard some of the people that are that play these games? Not everybody has the majestic voices that we have.
I've heard you got a great female voice for your characters.
I totally do. It's amazing. I'll just demonstrate it sometime.
I don't know. The chat bubbles really doesn't matter to me, but I think in like Final Fantasy XIV it would be ridiculous. Oh God, because everybody's hubbed so close in particular areas. SWTOR, it's never really bothered me that they're not there, but I could see them working there. But the whole thing is the engine, right? The poor engine,
Yeah.
the poor engine that couldn't. I am kind of disappointed that they're not in Elder Scrolls, though. And
Yeah.
Larry, it's the same reason you just gave. I'm not an RPer, but the Elder Scrolls, I mean, that is tailor-made for being RP. You create your own backstory, do whatever you want, and it just seems like they probably should have included it. But alas, it's probably the poor engines that can't do it. We got a tease about
this.
the first...
You know what? This time, though, Howard, I will say that this time, I don't think it's an engine thing.
No, I don't think it is.
This was a choice. Yeah, because the engine for Elder Scrolls is extremely smooth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We did get a bit of a tease about the first Adventure Zone. Finally. I mean, this is one of those topics that everybody's been asking about and wanting to see. And the first content update after launch. We'll be hearing a lot more about adventures soon, which seems to be the usual tagline. So these are kind of the big question mark in the game right now, especially for me. I'm a PvE kind of guy. I'm over PvP, so Adventure Zones really kind of appeal. They're supposed to be a big deal. What are you guys hoping for?
As a PvEer, I'm hoping, this is my big hope, is that they're everything that they have said that they're going to be. That's basically what it boils down to. It's going to be that it's absolutely going to be the raid kind of content. That it's also going to be end game content, stuff that is worthy of like a horizontal progression kind of thing, where there's a whole bunch of exploration. They have said that it's pretty much what it's going to be is just a zone where everything that exists out in the world is going to exist in these high-level zones, and that's what I'm hoping for, plus the raids on top of it. So I hope that we're looking at more difficult content, a little more challenging stuff, things that require teamwork, things that require thought, and that aren't just, go kill these 10 things and then gather up reputation, those kinds of stuff. I'm hoping for actual quests, pretty much like what they have in the world. Because in the world, and currently in the game, you can talk to certain people and get quests that don't have the little quest marker over it. So I'm hoping for certain things like that.
No, and I'm with you. To me, it doesn't have to even be a raid. Because they've said no raids, kind of raids, almost raids, not quite raids. I mean, they've been all over the board with this from a year and a half ago until now, how they were going to do this endgame stuff. But I do want something compelling there, because that's my long-term concern right now. And I've said it on this show before, is I'm going to have fun getting to max level. And it's, to me, that justifies the purchase of the box, just like a Skyrim purchase would be justified there. But this is the big question mark on how long my sub stays active. Justin couldn't care less. He's all about PvP. He doesn't even care.
Adventures are the one thing. I mean, it sounds like they're similar content to that other game that has adventures. That it's launching a couple months after it.
I have no idea what game you're talking about, but you can get 20% off right now if you pre-order it at GameBreaker.tv/deals.
But I mean, we did get some information on it months ago, and they did this whole video with IGN, I think, or something like that, some kind of interview video, and they said it was 4 to 24-man instances of content. Where, I mean, it sounds like it was sort of just like a dungeon, but more open with exploratory things. Of course, I feel like they've gotten to a point that they're going to do what another game did a couple years back and said, "Oh, people won't get to 50 very fast. We can get this content in later."
Yeah. I have to disagree with that. I think that I'm
just going to sit back again.
I think that I think they kind of, at least not necessarily to the point that we as players realize, but I do think that they have a little better grasp on how fast people are actually burning through this content, and that I believe that we're going to see Adventure Zone rather quickly, and we're going to see something for in-game content rather quickly. Now, is it going to be as much as players are hoping for? Probably not, because nobody can ever live up to the expectation of players. So
we are a bunch of greedy bastards.
That's right.
And we're gonna make the ZeniMax BioWare comparison in a little bit here when we talk about another subject. So let's kind of hold that thought for just a minute. Cash Shop, of course, came up on no doubt that it wasn't going to. We can expect name change services, vanity pets, the usual fare. Now, there's no timeline on any of this, or concrete plans, so don't expect anything at the moment. But I do want to ask you two one question, because I took a beating on last week's TWIMMO about this issue. What do you guys feel about the whole mount in the Cash Shop from launch thing?
It's time to quit whining about it. There's WoW has them. Mounts everywhere. I pay a sub. They pay by mounts every single time. Smart Company, left and right. It's a mount. It doesn't even fight in combat. It dies, whatever. You jump off, you get back on it.
Mr. Everett?
Well, it's not... that isn't the only way to get mounts.
No, it's not the only way to get it.
If that was the only way to get mounts, I would be upset about that, because I think that's kind of ridiculous, because mounts are kind of a necessity in this game, especially in PvP. But since you can get mounts and mini pets and stuff like that in other ways, I don't have a problem with it. I mean, honestly, now it just does. It takes more than $15 a month in order to support a game anymore, and I don't begrudge them for wanting to make a little bit extra money off the vanity stuff.
Damn, nobody agrees. Maybe I'm the only one that doesn't like this. It's the basic mount, which you can get after probably a couple hours of gameplay, if that. It's not that far in. And if you're getting if you pre-ordered and are buying certain sets, you already get a mount in those sets anyway. So ZeniMax, when I looked into it a little more, I could see the rationale behind the decision. There were a lot of people complaining about the mount being blocked behind a different upgrade set, so they said, okay, well, you know what, we'll make the mount available by itself. That way, if you just want the mount, you can go ahead and get it. My problem with it is they've made so many statements over the past 6 to 12 months about this validating the subscription, and everything is going to be accessed by the subscription, and we'll probably have a shop for name changes and character remodels and stuff like that. But then to automatically go, hey, at launch, boom, we got an item right away. And I think it's a little bit different than making the Blizzard comparison, because Blizzard was already very well established, and the 0 through 60, even 0 through 70 game was totally negated by the point that they were doing this anyway. So it just put a bad taste in my mouth that right off the bat, it wasn't that it was a mount that bothered me, it was that there was an item like that in there, period, from day one.
I understand. Yeah, I absolutely understand where you're coming from, and to a point, I agree. But I don't honestly at this point, because they have said this and then gone back on that, and then said this and then gone back on that, and all throughout this, pre-launch portion. I really take anything that they say with a grain of salt, to be perfectly honest.
And we're going to talk about yet another issue where they did this. I brought that up last week, that there's been like 5 things that we were told one thing, and then within months it was totally reversed, and a biggie popped up this week. A biggie. Going back, Larry, you talked about the starter islands and being able to skip that. Now they're taking flack the other way, because... people were skipping it, and it's not very obvious. And to be fair, it really wasn't. You had to figure a little bit out, but it wasn't that bad, I thought. But a lot of people are kind of giving ZeniMax flack that it was really not so obvious how you could go back and do those islands if you wanted to. Justin's just rolled his eyes already.
Go ahead.
You gave him freedom, and the people couldn't handle the freedom. And it's like, here's your choice. Oh, we don't hold your hand enough to figure out how to get back there, so now let's make it easier to hold your hand again. I mean, I think I decide. I can't from switching to starter island stuff and from switching the entire starting prison area. I'm not sure if they're wanting freedom or if they're wanting to take control and be your parent. Mommy and Daddy might as well play this game.
So here's the fix.
Mommy and Daddy.
This has got to be like somebody at ZeniMax was just like, you've got to be freaking kidding me. You know what? Fine. Put an NPC standing right in front of the mainland spawn point that gives you the option to go back to Noob Island.
Yeah.
I don't know if they could have put a better solution in, right? It doesn't get any easier
There really
than that.
isn't. It's really funny. It's you know what the thing is, though, and this is the thing, that the other Elder Scrolls games really don't hold your hand either.
No.
Hey, welcome to Elder Scrolls, people. This is it. This is what the games are like. They don't hold your hand. You go and you figure things out as you get your ass kicked a few times.
And that makes it awesome.
Yeah, that's it, exactly. That is one of the biggest things, one of the coolest things that makes Elder Scrolls what it is because you're in there. You get thrown into the thick of it. There is like a really short starter area, and then you go and you do whatever you want to do. That's it.
I do have one big gripe with it, though. Right now, what they've done, the story doesn't make sense. So your first hour of playing, the story's not going to make sense. After that, it doesn't really matter. But the whole, all of a sudden I'm here, I was saved and going back there, it's just really weird now. But once you get past that, it's all fine.
You can tell a lot of the catering is to the MMO crowd. I mean, Elder Scrolls fans, like you said, Larry, they know. It's not going to hold your hand. It's an Elder Scrolls game. A lot of these are kind of more concessions because it is an MMO. Although, thank God, not everybody's going to start the game with a sword. like the last beta weekend where ZeniMax just decided and you were in Mumble, you were like, hey, wait, you can't pick a weapon. What? Oh, I have a sword. Oh.
With no board.
And so does everybody.
Everyone gets a sword, no shield. It's like, what's going on?
On other role-playing-esque topics, there were discussions a while ago about segregating players based on their playstyle, whether you were a PvE person, a PvP person, a role player, which they can't do server-wise because they're doing the whole mega server thingy. So yeah, those ideas were now scrapped. They can't do it right now, but they'll be working on something in the future for role players, but we're not promising anything. And Larry sheds a tear.
But it's not just that. It's not just that. It's, I mean, everybody. You want to be able to find people of similar play styles as yours. Is really what it boils down to. I mean, whether that's roleplay, whether it's PvE, whether it's PvP, whatever the case may be, you want to be able to find the people with similar play styles and not being able to do that. That was a cool thing. I thought that was one of the most innovative things I had heard of in an MMO, and I thought, wow, that is really awesome. We'll always end up, even though there's a huge mega server with, a bazillion instances of one island, you're going to still be able to hook up with the same people. So,
I mean, one solution though, Justin, could be you have the ability to join 5 guilds, so you can kind of start joining like-minded players, but then you have that whole complication where it's not the easiest game to group up and actually see each other in at any given point with all the different phasing and stuff going on. So I guess that's a partial solution, but
as long as the grouping mechanic works. Last week we had problems with grouping. You try to invite somebody, we're like, oh, I'm the leader, and then 2 minutes later, nobody's the leader of the group anymore. You had to disband.
All right, before we move on, I do have to bring it up. Larry, why don't you walk us through us? You're being the writer, you're the most schooled that could probably keep this concise.
Oh,
ZeniMax went back on some API promises. And I mentioned this last week, and Gary laughed at me that it's hard to take what ZeniMax says now as truth because so many of these things have been reversed. Walk us through the API changes.
Okay, I wouldn't necessarily that they went back on any promises, mind you. I don't think that no, I could be wrong, but I don't remember them ever saying that everything that's in the API now is absolutely going to be there at launch. But the thing is...
But they did promise that this was going to be a lot more open than it actually is going to end up being. As far as what add-on people are going to be able to do.
Well, okay, all right. Here, so let me just consolidate everything that they did. Basically, the overarching scope of the API changes is that they made it so that the API, everything that is in the API, is now things that somebody that doesn't have any add-ons, they will see that information as well. So some of the things that have been taken out, just as examples, enemy cast bars, you're not going to be able to see that. Enemy buffs and debuffs, you're not going to be able to see that. Pretty much anything that the enemy does to you, you're not going to get that information. So, for instance, if
just the important stuff. That's all they took out.
The things that now you'll be able to see the reaction to it. You'll be able to see like your health bar drop down every so often, that sort of thing. But so anything that you do and anything that is done to you in a sense, you'll be able to see. But basically, what it boils down to is that people with add-ons are not going to have, as far as the information given to them, are not going to have any more information given to them than somebody without the add-ons. And some people, especially people over at Tamriel Foundry, who have worked, honestly, they worked really, really hard on making this add-on. Those guys are extremely upset, and they might have been a little upset with me about not putting that in their add-on in my add-on list, but I knew that this API change was coming. I could feel it coming, so I didn't include theirs, because there's that basically this API change kind of gutted their add-on.
Justin, you said before the show that you expected this too, so it's It's
because they put a big focus in their in-game and PvP, and I think that's where this strongly comes through, is because of what's going on with the Cyrodiil fights and stuff. They don't want to have you having all this additional information out there when you're fighting of what all the enemy players are doing around you. In fact, it might be too much information at times and cause lag on people's screens, who knows, but they didn't want you to have it. They didn't want that advantage going in there, and that's a big portion of their game. Even though it's weird that in Elder Scrolls game to have PvP such a big portion, it is. And I think that's where the add-ons was always in question, was in regards to PvP. And they took a step and said, we're going to limit it.
Well,
Besides, it ruins the Elder Scroll experience anyways if you know what all the enemies are doing.
Well, and it also on the high-end PvE side, it kind of kills that as well, but in a different way. It makes it so that certain add-ons are required in order for you to do specific dungeons, and I can understand it. I don't know where, I'm kind of on the fence about it, to be honest, about the whole thing in general. But I can understand where ZeniMax is coming from as far as wanting. They don't want that kind of segregation or whatever you want to call it, where it's necessary to do certain dungeons because of add-ons. And they also, quite frankly, I wouldn't want to have to build a dungeon based off of somebody building an add-on that knows everything that the enemy's done. If they've already set this here's the parameters of how we're going to build a dungeon, and it's based off of players knowing certain information, then to change that is going to be detrimental to the whole design in general, and you're going to have to, turn into WoW, where you have like a 5% chance of actually beating it, on certain ones, certain dungeons, and there's going to be certain situations where it's going to be required that the group is going to be made up of certain specs, and they don't want that. They want a little more freedom with it, and in order to do that, in order to scale back a bit on what the bosses are able to do or what the bosses can do, they have to scale back on the information that players know.
See, this is kind of like the mount for me. I'm not really concerned that it was a mount. I'm just concerned with the sequence of events here. The only thing that really bugs me about this, if you don't want those things in your game because it's, PvP is going to be the focus and you think it might give somebody an unnecessary or an advantage of some type over it, you want to try to keep everybody in the same playing field so the add-ons aren't required. They're just, if you want them, great. I have no problem with that. It's your game. But there are a couple considerations that they probably should have made here. One of which being, these are things that MMO players are used to having access to across the board now. Not only just enemy stuff, but even I'm seeing chat saying that they're using some certain add-ons and now they can't even see buffs or debuffs on their own character that are less than 30 seconds. With this whole
that's
whole
one of them.
too.
That's one of them.
And then my second problem is that this should have been communicated much earlier, because this wasn't just a decision they made last night. They've had an idea of what they were going to allow players to modify in an add-on and not. A lot of work has been put into a game that releases in a little over a week on some add-ons for some people that are, quite honestly, they might be depending on that traffic because the sites they run are their revenue streams and now gone. This kind of should have been communicated a little bit earlier, I think.
I absolutely agree. That is the biggest upsetting point about this, is not necessarily that they took the stuff out of the API, although which is what I'm on the fence about. Should they have taken that out or shouldn't they have taken it out? I'm on the fence about that. However, I am completely against the way they communicated this. I think that they did a really poor job, and frankly, they kind of done a poor job overall with
hasn't that been that's been the
Yeah.
key word the whole time here with everything they've done, the starter islands, the collision detection, the API, is this team has lacked in PR communication from the very beginning and getting anything out to us and letting us know what's going on. And they should have been working with the API team from the very get-go. WildStar did it. I don't know how many of you were, I don't know if any of you were in the early beta, but when they released their API to those people, they talked with them. They worked with them. They saw what they were doing. Entire discussions developed in the forums about what is right for the API, what's too much information, what's not information. They participated in that, and that was awesome discussion, and they were very open about that. Elder Scrolls has just been shut mouth on everything.
Yep.
All right, well, that's enough Elder Scrolls chat. It's making me angry. But I still can't wait to play it. We got a little over a week to go before early access, so I'm looking forward to that. If the changes in the API have totally turned you off to the Elder Scrolls Online, though, I would encourage you to check out gamebreaker.tv/deals. Right now, if you want to pre-order WildStar, because the API in Elder Scrolls has just totally miffed you, you could get 20% off by going to that URL. There's a number of different purchase options depending on if you want physical or digital deluxe or whatever. I actually did this deal last night to get my digital deluxe WildStar, and then used money that I had on Green Man Gaming as credit from a previous gamebreaker.tv/deal, and I ended up getting WildStar Collectors, or the WildStar Digital Deluxe, for $48 total. So you really
page is going to be the death of me.
Yeah, it really is. The deals on this page change all the time. We don't know when new ones are coming and when old ones go. So if you see one you like, don't wait too long before you use it. Gamebreaker.tv/deals. Right now on the header, you'll see the pre-order 20% off for WildStar, and then down the page, there's a whole slew of other deals. I got Dark Souls 2, although I already had it for the PS3, so yeah, I'll be able to play it on the PC in about a month. And Titanfall, there were a number of games that I've done through this page, so check it out. If you're planning on pre-ordering WildStar, why not save 20% off of it anyway? Check it out, gamebreaker.tv/deals. Now, EverQuest Next Landmark, the creation, closed beta next week, 26th. Kind of out of nowhere. Just, hey, here goes closed beta.
That's not out of nowhere.
No, it's been a long time coming. we're ready for it. Which it's really good news if you didn't spend the $100 to get into the alpha. I guess that was probably a great post for you. Any of you in the alpha?
Yes.
Okay, so all three of us. Nice, great.
Yeah.
Great.
I love the game. I think it's amazing. It's one of the best games. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, I was going to say it's one of the best games coming out. I mean, I am looking forward to everything that they're doing in that game, and can't wait to actually get all the features in.
All right, so let me ask you guys this then: EverQuest Landmark or EverQuest Next? Which has you more hyped?
Next.
I like both. I like them both. They're both okay. I like
Larry's
them both
got that
for
face
different
right
reasons.
now that it's like, man, you're asking me to decide which of my kids I love more.
It's kind of like that. It really is. I mean, it's because I like Landmark the same reason that I like Minecraft. You know, I like EverQuest Next for the same reason that I like SWG. Two different, in my mind, the way I conceive them is they're two different games. And
Landmark's a relaxation game. I want to jump in there, and you know what? I may feel like playing solo today and just building something for a while, or just want to do a little project with people.
With the creation games, Landmark, Minecraft, those types of sandboxy, creation-y only games, and I know Landmark's going to be a bit more than creation when we get to the end of this, but for right now, it's mostly creation. Yeah. That kind of falls into a special bucket for me, and that's the bucket of, I'm really burnt out on everything else. Let me go play Landmark. I end up playing it for 9 hours before I realize that much time has passed, and then I don't touch it for like 3 or 4 weeks. That's where I fall with the creation game. So I'm looking forward to EverQuest Next more, but I do enjoy my time in Landmark. But with the closed beta coming, we're going to get a wipe, except you'll be able to keep your character name, and if you built something really cool, you'll be able to save templates so that you can at least be able to reconstruct what you had fairly quickly. But let me ask you guys this. I don't think
I'm going to be able to build my hobbit hole anymore, because that was very, very dependent on the landscape, and I'm pretty sure that the landscape's not going to be exactly the same.
No, all that stuff's going to change. Let me ask this, though. I wonder how many people are honestly really into Landmark. Right now, it just seems like it's a game that's kind of out there right now. It's there. If you play it, great. If not, there's not a lot of hype surrounding it, not a lot of hoopla, and granted, we're just going into closed beta, so a lot of the stuff, if you didn't pay for access, you haven't been playing it anyway, but it just seems like it's kind of cruising along, doing its thing.
I don't know how many people are interested in it, but I do know that people who have been quite hardcore with it. I mean, what we thought was just like small voxels, people have apparently made these things called micro voxels and anti-voxels now. I'm not sure what anti-voxels are yet. But the micro voxels are amazing. Like, they're creating these like really tiny voxels and creating these unique shapes that are only possible. That someone was just like, "Hey, let's test this out," and they found out that they could do it. It's things that were never possible before. The devs didn't even know, and the players are basically just creating new content for the game without content being added.
It definitely seems like the type of game where you could you tweet a picture of something you built, and you're very likely to get a tweet from a dev back saying, "How the hell did you do that? We're not sure how you built that." It just definitely is that type of game with the tools there. I dig it. I don't know. I can't imagine investing hours and days and months into it like you do a traditional MMO or even a sandboxy MMO, something like Star Wars Galaxies. I sank so much time into that game. I can't imagine.
Well, the thing is, what they have currently is not what they're ultimately going to have.
Right.
That's the thing. There's good. It's from everything that I've read about it. It's basically, and everything that I've experienced with it. It just seems like it's going to be Minecraft with better graphics, which is awesome because one of the things I don't like about Minecraft is that the graphics are horrible. So
block house. Don't complain about that.
Yeah. So I'm on board with that. I want to, and I can see myself spending quite a bit of time in there. Now, currently, I'm not spending a whole lot of time in there because currently there isn't a whole lot of things to do other than dig a hole and build stuff, and which is cool, mind you. Digging holes and building stuff is a lot of fun. I used to do that when I was a kid in the backyard.
What's that? It's a backyard thing.
Yeah,
I'm the same way though. It's like I go in there and I'm like, yeah, oh, okay, this is clever, this is fun and everything. And I want to see those more additions where the world starts becoming dangerous. For instance, they've made a big hoopla about that coming at future points where things in the world can actually kill you now, and that's the stuff that really intrigues me. I like the gather stuff and build stuff, but now if you add an element of danger to it. Now we're talking my language. Now things are getting spicy. That's a spicy meatball. Again, I'm not bad-mouthing Landmark. I do enjoy it when I play it. I just don't see myself sinking a ton of time into it, particularly when EverQuest Next comes out. Although you guys can build all the cool stuff, and I'll just buy it, and then you'll make money. So I guess that'll work, too.
Excellent.
I will buy your Hobbit hole, Larry.
Thank you. I love my Hobbit hole. It's incredible.
I'm gonna pre-order one right now. Actually,
it was really cool. It was built into the side of a hill, like a Hobbit hole. Like a Hobbit hole. But the thing is, it has a couple of levels, and then I have a chimney coming out of the top of it that blows smoke. It's great. It's amazing. So there's like a chimney on top of this.
You stuck your furnace there, didn't you?
Yeah, it's a furnace and it blows smoke out of it. It's great. I love it.
From the other side, Tryon did drop some information about ArcheAge. Speaking of sandboxy, finally, now we've known that they were going to be the publishers on this side of the world for quite some time. They've had it on their website for a while. But we really don't have a lot of details. Besides, a few months ago, they said most of the game is done, but localization is going to take a while. There's like 1 million words that we've got to localize. Okay, fine. And that was really the only update we got, besides a few things on the forums after that. Turns out, coming to America and Europe later this year.
Yay.
Really exciting news for me. This is one I've been watching for a long time now.
And Scapes is the community manager.
Yes.
I'm excited about that too. He's a good guy.
NDA free closed beta at some point with an early supporters package, of course. That's the norm anymore. You get in via pre-launch packages, which sounds like pre-orders. But Larry, if you had to guess right now, is this free to play when it comes stateside?
Oh, that's a good question.
Because we've seen that in Korea it had the subscription, but then the subscription really wasn't doing very well.
I don't see a game honestly doing well anymore with a subscription, solely a subscription. I could foresee maybe a buy-to-play option kind of thing, or but it's. I don't know. I can't really make a really good guess right now. I honestly don't have enough information. Is really what it boils down to. But other than market trends say that subscriptions aren't going to last.
We are being told by chat that 45 minutes ago, because they were running their live stream concurrently with TWIMMO. We're being told by chat that they stated on the live stream it was in fact free to play.
There we go. Hey,
and that was I did an episode of the free-to-play cast a few weeks ago on a previous site that I used to work for, where I said this would be free-to-play, so I'm glad that I'm justified.
I think it's too late to make it sub anyways now. The game's too old at this point.
Well, here's the other thing, though. Depending on when you look at the development patch-wise, we've heard really, really good things out of Korea, and then freaking terrible things out of Korea. It just changes based on player feedback from week to week almost. So it's really hard to tell. I mean, I'm super pumped about the game. I've been watching it for so damn long that it feels like I should have played this 3 years ago already. But it's really hard to get a handle on if the game's going to be any good or not when we finally get our hands on it.
Yeah, one of our writers over at Massively has played some of it. Jeffrey Hard. He was a huge SWG fan, and he is absolutely in love with the game, and can't wait till it hits the States. So, if you if you like what Jeffrey Hard does, if you're the same kind of gamer he is, which is a pretty hardcore sandbox gamer, then you'll like it, from what I gathered.
Do you think there's still a place for a sandboxy games like this? I mean, Galaxies, I know you were big into, Larry, and I played it for years. It had huge sandbox elements to it, but I think ArcheAge is even taking a step beyond what Star Wars Galaxies did as far as the sandbox. Do you think ultimately, long-term, that can be successful, particularly in the West?
Okay, successful. I guess it depends on how you measure that.
As in, Tryon at least makes a profit. A profit.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that I think it's going to take something like a sandbox to kind of knock WoW off its pedestal and kind of, and not saying that it's going to be ArcheAge or quite frankly that I think or anything particular is one game is going to knock WoW off its pedestal. I just think that there are people out there that really, really enjoy, lots of people that like a living world, a world where the players create the content, where where it's basic. The idea is that you go in there and you live out the life of this character, and there are a lot of people who want that kind of game. And so I think that there's definitely a market for it, and maybe ArcheAge is it.
And ArcheAge is bringing some theme park type elements to it. It's not like EverQuest Next or EverQuest Landmark, just drop in and go do your thing. It's not that quite sandbox, but it is more sandbox than we're used to with things like WoW and Elder Scrolls Online and Guild Wars 2. Justin, you and I have talked an awful lot when we play with Gamebreaker Nation and with Q and Rift about how well Tryon did with the free-to-play conversion for Rift. Gotta be good news that Tryon is going to be doing the free-to-play here, because except for the occasional lucky mount offering here and there, they really kind of have the free-to-play model nailed perfectly, in my opinion.
They do have a pretty good job. They definitely have a pretty good job of making me look at it and go, that costume kind of looks good. Here's a couple bucks. It looks awesome. So, I mean, they do a pretty good job with that.
I subbed for so long. I still sub to Rift. But then,
you still get coins.
But when it went free to play, my sub went from $15 a month to like $60 a month because I kept buying damn things from their cash shop. It's just they do a nice job. There's the occasional, like I said, lucky box and key thing, particularly with their 2 or 3 week events that I wish they would knock that shit off. But for the most part, they do a good job.
But I think that's what they'll do awesome. If they can work with them, with the developers of ArcheAge and stuff, and go the route of even like Secret World, where you have all these clothing options to create your character. This is a sandbox game. People want to look unique. So provide tons of clothing options that people can pick apart, shirts, shoes, pants, whatever, and they can create their character so that it's their character. It's who they are playing. And then they'll take money from you right out of your wallet.
There's one thing that we all know for sure. ArcheAge is definitely going to be better than End of Nations, am I right?
Oh my gosh.
Too
Wow.
soon? Was that too soon?
Ooh.
Well, the ArcheAge Nation, ArcheAge forums, the ArcheAge forums are now live. So if you want to check them out, go ahead. We're hearing from chat that their live stream that they're running concurrently with our recording here is they're also going to be pumping alpha invites out shortly. So stay tuned. I'm sure we will have a ton more information on ArcheAge as we start getting our hands on it. Super pumped. I just really like Tryon, and ArcheAge is something I've been watching since before they even had it. So,
they do have at least 57,000 characters to people that want to play. If you didn't see, Russia ArcheAge banned 57,000 players.
Oh yeah.
So they can all come over and play.
All right, so finally today, director, producer, Final Fantasy XIV, Naoki Yoshida, talked about Final Fantasy XIV's trouble at GDC. Now, normally I would reserve this type of chat for XIV, Reborn, on Tuesday nights on Game Breaker, right here, 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Central, or 7 p.m. Eastern. However, I did want to get your kind of opinion on this, because if you read it or looked at it, this had to be a very humbling experience here. It would have been very easy to go into GDC and present about, oh, look at how well we did with A Realm Reborn, and then talk about something inane. But I really liked that Yoshi P really got into this. He talked about transforming 14 from a monstrous failure, his words, not ours, into a successful MMO. I mentioned it earlier. Larry, you're kind of familiar with this whole kind of not so good, but then really starting to get good concept with Star Wars The Old Republic. This sounds a little familiar. I mean, I played Star Wars like crazy through the first 2 raids, and then that was it. I was done. There was nothing to do, and I stopped playing for months. And now, just like a month and a half ago, I've resubbed again.
Yeah, I think that this now. I don't necessarily think that MMOs should follow the Final Fantasy XIV model of putting something out there that is a complete failure.
Yeah, we're gonna shut it. We're gonna go here, charge you for an extra year.
Here's what we should do, guys. We should make a shitty game that doesn't work, and then 2 years later we'll release what we actually wanted.
And people will praise us for it. Yeah.
Phoenix down on our game.
Now, and Star Wars wasn't anywhere near as bad a state as the original 14. I mean, it wasn't even close. No. I'll admit that. But they did talk about the previous focus maybe not being the best focus for 14 and the new focus, and that's kind of where I draw the Star Wars comparison, is that the original focus compared to the current focus are 2 drastically different pictures. Yeah,
I think that's... yeah, exactly. And but I think that this is kind of the great thing about MMOs in general. This whole idea that it the game like literally changes because of the audience that sticks with it, and it grows with its audience, and no single player game can do that. And that's one of the things that is just great about MMOs in general, is that, oh, well, our players are doing this. Okay, so we'll kind of emphasize that a little bit and do some things that are really cool on this end. And, oh, our players are over here doing this now. Okay, well, let's change and do that. It's amazing. It's one of the amazing things about MMOs in general, and one of the amazing things about, I think, just Final Fantasy XIV specifically, being able to reinvent itself with its audience. And that's why I play MMOs. That is the reason right there that I play MMOs, is because of that.
Yoshi P talked about the focus originally on the first version and how it was ridiculously driven on graphics, something Square Enix, is normally known for, and so they try to excel at above and beyond, and they did. I mean, nobody's going to argue that the original Final Fantasy XIV wasn't a beautiful game graphically, but the focus was so much on there, and again, comparing to Star Wars, Justin, that's kind of what we got when Star Wars came out, right? The focus was all on story. Story.
Yeah,
and lately, not so much story anymore.
They had their pillar. SWTOR had its pillars from the beginning, and their pillars crumbled beneath them. And they had to rebuild them, and they've done pretty well with rebuilding them.
I think you just compared EA to Rome. Perhaps the reason Star Wars didn't had a shorter rough patch was their transition to free-to-play, because they probably didn't focus on flower pots. That's probably why.
Yes.
Because
those are dangerous
according to
things.
Yoshi P, at one point he said that in the original 14 they had in a 1,000 polygon flower pot with 150 lines of shader code.
I was wondering in that benchmark, when I ran that benchmark all those years ago, I'm like, that flower pot there on that shit. that flower pot is what's killing my computer right now.
Now, to put that into perspective, I mean, maybe you don't know a lot about polygon counts and shader codes and whatever, but to put that into perspective, that is one flower pot having and taking as much processing power as a playable character. a flower pot.
Can it be a playable character?
That's an
That's a little overkill.
Savari.
A little overkill at that point. He also went on to talk about some other reasons that the game failed, and he was very blunt. I mean, about their unwillingness to change the design model when things weren't working. Their thought that every single thing that was wrong with the game could be patched at some point. They didn't have to restructure. So if you haven't checked it out, very, very great interview or conference speech, whatever, from GDC, Yoshi P. It was a great job. I mean, we're going to cover it more on XIV Reborn. I just thought the similarities to SWOTOR were a little too much to not have Mr. Everett comment on it. There he is, Mr. Larry Everett himself. You can follow him on Twitter's @Shadow, SHADDOE. Follow him over on Massively, where he's writing up Elder Scrolls, writing up Star Wars, and YouTube videos. He's all over. Just follow his damn Twitter, and he'll guide you to the rest.
I will.
Mr. Justin Kennedy, @JKKennedyTV on the Twitters. Follow him. He's doing an awful lot on Gamebreaker. Great to have you this week, sir. Appreciate it.
Awesome to be here. It's fun.
I'm Mike Byrne, a.k.a. Magic Man. You can follow me on Twitter @MagicMan1, MAGICKMANN1. If you're following Gamebreaker, you know next week Diablo 3 Reaper of Souls launches on the 25th. So Monday, on the 24th at 7 p.m. Pacific, that's 10 p.m. Eastern, we will be having a Gamebreaker Nation Diablo 3 launch show and party where you'll be able to play with members of the Gamebreaker Nation. That's not on this official Gamebreaker channel. That's on our sister channel, twitch.tv/GBNation. Gotta follow that so that you don't miss the show. I'll be on there. Kiggles from After Dark will be on there. Crew will be on there. And if you aren't joining in with the Gamebreaker Nation yet, you're sorely missing out. We've got tons of people in tons of different games and an official Mumble where you can come hang out with all of us. Until next time, gang, stay safe. And we'll see you on the servers.